Have you ever watched someone lose thousands of dollars while feeling like they're winning? I'm talking about that guy at the office who can't stop talking about his latest trade. The one who made $2,000 on a stock last week and won't shut up about it. He's checking his phone every 15 minutes, showing people his charts, acting like he's cracked the code. What he's not mentioning is that he's down $8,000 overall this year. But that one win? That's the only thing he remembers. Meanwhile, there's another person in the same office. Never talks about investing, doesn't check stock prices, couldn't tell you what the market did yesterday, and they're quietly building actual wealth. Here at Simple Money, we've spent years watching these two types of people, and what separates them isn't intelligence, it's not luck, it's not even money, it's something so counterintuitive that most people reject it the moment they hear it. Today, I'm going to show you why the best investors look nothing like investors, and why the strategy that works looks suspiciously like doing nothing at all. Let me tell you what's actually happening in the world of personal investing right now. We've gamified it. We've turned it into entertainment, into a sport where you can watch the score change in real time on a screen in your pocket. And here's the problem with that. Games are designed to be played. Sports are designed to be watched. And when you're playing and watching your investments, you're not actually investing anymore. Think about the apps you use. Robinhood, Webull, even the traditional ones are copying the same playbook. They send you notifications when stocks move. They show you what other people are buying. They give you instant access to trade anything, anytime, anywhere. This isn't designed to make you wealthy. It's designed to make you trade. Because every time you trade, someone makes money. And it's usually not you. Here's a number that should terrify you. The average person who actively manages their own investments underperforms a basic index fund by about 2% per year. 2% doesn't sound catastrophic, but let me show you what that actually means. If you invest $500 per month for 30 years, that 2% difference is the gap between having $1.2 million and having $800,000. That's $400,000 you lost. Not to bad luck, not to a market crash, to yourself. You paid $400,000 for the privilege of feeling like you were in control. And here's what nobody wants to say out loud. The reason you underperformed wasn't because you picked the wrong stocks. It's because you picked stocks at all. Now, I'm about to tell you about an investment strategy that beats roughly 90% of professional money managers. It requires maybe 20 minutes of work per year, and it's so boring that people would literally rather lose money than use it. This is what I call the boredom advantage. And once you understand why it works, you'll never look at investing the same way again. Here's the strategy. You buy something called a total market index fund. You set up automatic monthly investments. And then you do the hardest thing imaginable in modern investing. You leave it alone. That's the entire strategy. I can see you right now, reading this and thinking, there's no way that works. That's too simple. What's the catch? The catch is that it's so boring, you'll want to quit. Your brain will literally try to sabotage you into doing something more exciting. And if you can resist that urge, you'll get rich. Let me show you why boring absolutely destroys clever. The first reason is what I call the activity illusion. Your brain has a simple rule. If you're not doing something, you're not making progress. This made perfect sense for 99% of human history. If you weren't actively hunting food, you weren't eating. If you weren't building shelter, you were exposed to the elements. Action equaled survival. But in investing, this instinct will bankrupt you. Every single trade you make costs you money. Sometimes it's obvious fees. Sometimes it's the spread between the buy and sell price. Sometimes it's taxes on your gains. But it always costs you something. Here's a specific example that happens to people all the time. You have $10,000 invested in an index fund. The market drops 15% over a month. You panic. You sell to preserve what's left. You wait for things to calm down. What you just did was lock in your losses. You sold low, and you're going to buy back in high once you feel safe again. Feeling safe means the market has already recovered. You missed the recovery entirely. That one decision, that one action, just cost you thousands of dollars, maybe tens of thousands over your lifetime, all because you couldn't sit still. The boring investor doesn't face this temptation. They never look. They never know there was a drop. They keep buying every month like nothing happened. And they end up buying more shares while everything is on sale. They get rich not because they're smart, but because they're successfully bored. The second reason boring wins is what I call the excitement premium. Exciting investments are expensive. And I don't mean expensive in price. I mean expensive in outcome. Here's how it works. When a stock is all over the news, when your friends are talking about it, when you feel that fear of missing out, that's when it's at its most overpriced. You're not paying for the company's value anymore. You're paying for the story, the hype, the feeling of being part of something big. And feelings are the most expensive thing you can buy. Let me give you a real example. GameStop, January 2021. It's everywhere. Reddit is going crazy. People are making fortunes overnight. You feel like you're missing the opportunity of a lifetime. So you buy in at $300 per share. It feels electric. You're part of the movement. You're sticking it to Wall Street. It's not even about money anymore. It's about principle. 2 weeks later, it's at $50. You've lost 80% of your investment. The excitement is gone. Now it's just a painful reminder in your portfolio. Meanwhile, your boring index fund made about 1% that month. Nothing exciting. Nothing to talk about at parties. But also nothing that wiped out your savings. Here's what was really happening. By the time you heard about GameStop, the smart money had already gotten in. They bought at $5, at $10. They were waiting for people like you to drive the price to $300 so they could sell. You weren't early. You were the exit strategy. The boring investment doesn't have this problem. Nobody's making TikToks about index funds. There's no excitement, no narrative, and that's exactly why it works. You're paying for actual company value, not for a story. The third reason is the control trap. Here's something that will blow your mind. Studies show that people would rather have control and lose money than give up control and make money. They prefer losing if it means they feel like they're in charge. This is insane, but it's true. And it's why people pick individual stocks instead of index funds. Picking stocks feels powerful, like you're using your intelligence, like your research matters, like you're the master of your financial destiny. It feels good. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Your research doesn't matter. Your intelligence doesn't give you an edge. You're competing against algorithms that process information in microseconds and institutions with teams of analysts and inside connections. It's like thinking you can beat an Olympic sprinter because you jog 3 times a week. The boring strategy requires you to admit something most people can't. You don't know which companies will win. Neither do I. Neither does anyone else with certainty. So instead of pretending you do, you buy them all. You buy the entire market. The winners subsidize the losers. And over time, the market goes up because companies make money and money compounds. This humility makes you rich. Arrogance makes you poor. But arrogance feels better in the moment. The fourth reason boring destroys exciting is the patience paradox. Compound growth is the most powerful force in building wealth. Einstein called it the 8th wonder of the world. But here's the thing, it only works if you're patient enough to let it happen. And patience is exactly what exciting investing destroys. When you're checking your portfolio every day, every down day feels like a disaster. Every up day feels like you should lock in profits. You're on an emotional roller coaster that makes long-term thinking impossible. Let me show you what this costs. You invest $1,000 per month in an index fund. You never touch it. 30 years later, at 10% average returns, you have about $2.3 million. Now, let's say you do the exact same thing, but 3 times you get nervous during downturns. You pull your money out. You wait 6 months each time before reinvesting. Your final number drops to about $1.5 million. Those 3 decisions to be smart cost you $800,000. Not because you were unlucky, because you tried to be clever. The boring investor doesn't face this temptation. They set up automatic investments and then they forget the password to their brokerage account. They couldn't panic sell if they wanted to. Their patience isn't a virtue, it's automatic. And automatic patience is worth a fortune. The 5th reason is what I call the complexity curse. Complex strategies require maintenance. You need to stay informed, react to news, rebalance positions, monitor earnings reports, adjust for tax implications. It becomes a part-time job. And here's what happens with part-time jobs. Life gets busy. You have a deadline at work. Your kid gets sick. You go on vacation. You miss something important. And that miss costs you money. I've watched this happen over and over. Someone develops an elaborate trading strategy. They backtest it. It looks great on paper. They're convinced they've found an edge. They do well for 3 months. They feel like a genius. They're beating the market. They tell their friends about it. Then life happens. They get slammed at work for 2 weeks. They don't have time to monitor their positions. Something moves against them. They miss the signal to sell. They lose everything they gained, plus more. The boring strategy can't break. There's nothing to break. You're not relying on your attention, your discipline, your knowledge. You're relying on the simple fact that productive businesses tend to make money over time. It's bulletproof. Not because it's sophisticated, because it's too simple to fail. Now here's what nobody wants to admit. The real reason most people reject the boring strategy has nothing to do with returns. It's not about effectiveness, it's about how it makes them feel. Boring investing feels like you're not investing at all. It feels lazy, passive, like you're not reaching your potential, like you're leaving money on the table. And our brains hate that feeling. We're wired to crave action, to seek novelty, to want immediate feedback. The boring strategy provides none of these things. You set it up once, and then nothing happens. No dopamine hits. No wins to celebrate. No progress you can see. Just slow, steady, invisible compounding. Your brain interprets this as failure, as not trying hard enough. It will actively try to convince you to do something, anything, just to feel like you're participating. But here's the deeper pattern. The best strategies in life are almost always boring. Brushing your teeth twice a day is boring. Drinking water is boring. Getting 8 hours of sleep is boring. Spending less than you earn is boring. And they all work precisely because they're boring. Boring means sustainable. Boring means you can do it forever. Boring means there's no downside. Boring means it works whether you're motivated or not. Exciting things burn out. Boring things compound. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus is 32, works in tech, smart guy, reads a lot. He gets interested in investing after his company goes public and he gets some stock options. Suddenly, he has money to invest and he wants to make it grow. He opens a brokerage account, starts researching companies, subscribes to finance newsletters, joins investing Discord servers. He's all in. His first few trades go well. He makes about 40% in the first 6 months. He's convinced he has a natural talent for this. His friends start asking him for advice. He loves it. He starts spending more time on investing. lunch breaks researching companies, evenings watching finance YouTube, weekends analyzing charts. His girlfriend complains he's always on his phone. Then the market turns. His portfolio drops 25% in a month. He tells himself it's temporary. He reads articles saying to stay calm. He holds. It drops another 10%. Now he's stressed, can't sleep, checks his portfolio at 3 in the morning, snaps at people at work because he's exhausted. He sells half his positions to reduce risk. The stocks he sold immediately bounce back 30%. The ones he kept keep dropping. He's furious with himself. He tries to make it back by taking bigger risks. He buys options, loses even more. Now he's down 40% overall. 2 years of work erased in 6 months. But here's the worst part. Marcus still believes he just needs to learn more, get better at technical analysis, find the right strategy. He's bought 4 books, signed up for a trading course. He's sure next year will be different. Meanwhile, the market has recovered and hit new highs. Marcus missed the entire recovery because he was too busy trying to time it. Now let me tell you about Yuki. Yuki is 33, works as a teacher, started investing around the same time as Marcus. She had read exactly 1 book about investing. It said to buy a total stock market index fund and forget about it. So that's what she did. She set up automatic investments of $600 per month, connected it to her checking account. Then she basically forgot it existed. She checks her investment account maybe twice a year, once when she does her taxes, once when she's updating her net worth spreadsheet. That's it. She has no idea what the market did last month, or last week, or yesterday. She couldn't name a single stock in her portfolio. She doesn't know, and she doesn't care. She spends her time on things she actually enjoys: pottery classes, rock climbing, time with friends, reading novels, learning to cook new cuisines, things that make her life better. 2 years later, Yuki's portfolio has grown by about 45%, plus all her contributions. She's on track to retire by 55, and she's spent maybe 2 total hours thinking about investing. Marcus looks at Yuki and thinks she's not serious about her money, that she's leaving returns on the table, that she's just lucky. He feels superior because he understands markets. Yuki looks at Marcus and sees someone who turned investing into a stressful hobby that pays negative wages and steals his peace of mind. Here's what most people miss. The difference between Marcus and Yuki isn't about knowledge. It's not about discipline. It's not even about strategy in a traditional sense. It's about understanding one simple truth that violates everything we're taught. In investing, trying harder usually makes things worse. Marcus thought investing was like a skill you could master. Practice makes perfect. More effort equals better results. That's how everything else works, right? Your career, your fitness, your relationships. Try harder, get better. But investing is different. Investing is more like a garden. You plant seeds, you water occasionally, then you step back and let nature do its thing. If you dig up the seeds every day to check on them, they die. Yuki understood this instinctively. Or maybe she just couldn't be bothered to make it complicated. Either way, she won. And here's what makes this story even more crazy. Over their lifetimes, the difference between Marcus's approach and Yuki's approach is probably worth over $1 million. Maybe 2 million. Not because Yuki was smarter, not because she worked harder, because she was willing to be bored. Think about that. Being boring is worth 7 figures. The real insight here goes way beyond index funds versus stock picking. It's about recognizing that some problems are solved by doing less, not more. And our entire culture is terrible at teaching us this lesson. We worship hustle, optimization, constant improvement, the grind. If you're not working harder, you're falling behind. And that's true for most things. Your career actually does reward effort. Your health actually does require work. Your relationships need attention. But investing is the exception. Investing rewards the opposite. It rewards laziness. It rewards being willing to do nothing. It rewards accepting good enough instead of chasing perfect. And this creates a massive advantage for anyone who can do it, because most people can't. They know they should, but they can't make themselves choose boring when exciting is sitting right there. If you can master being boring with your money, you've already won. Not because you're smarter than everyone else, because you're willing to be bored while everyone else entertains themselves into poverty. Here's the thing about boring investing that nobody talks about. It's not actually about the money. Yes, the returns are great. Yes, beating 90% of investors is amazing. But that's not the real prize. The real prize is freedom. Freedom from anxiety, from checking prices, from wondering if you made the right decision, from CNBC telling you to panic, from Reddit telling you to buy, from your brain telling you to do something. The boring investor buys the index fund and forgets about it. They use their time and mental energy on things that actually matter, things they can control, their career, their relationships, their health, their hobbies, things that actually make their lives better. The exciting investor is chained to their portfolio. It starts as an interest, becomes a hobby, then an obsession, then a source of constant stress. They might make money, they might lose money, but either way, they've traded their peace of mind for it. And here's what people don't realize. Peace of mind compounds just like money. Maybe faster. When you're not worried about your investments, you make better decisions everywhere else. You take smarter risks in your career. You're more present with people you love. You sleep better. You're healthier. You're happier. That compounds into a better life. And a better life is the whole point of having money in the first place. So here's what this all comes down to. The boring strategy works so well that there's nothing left to optimize. No clever tricks, no secret techniques, no hidden edge. You buy the index fund. You keep buying it every month. You never sell it. That's the entire playbook. And something in your brain screams that this is wrong, that it can't be this simple, that you're being lazy, that you're not reaching your potential, that people who try harder must do better. But that instinct is exactly what costs regular people millions of dollars over their lifetimes. The inability to accept that in this one specific domain, more effort creates worse results. The boring advantage isn't about being passive. It's about being strategic with your energy. It's about recognizing that some battles are won by not fighting. Some games are won by not playing. The people getting genuinely wealthy from investing aren't the ones trading every day. They're not the ones with the most sophisticated models. They're not even the ones with the best information. They're the ones who figured out that investing is the one place where being boring beats being clever every single time. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. You start noticing the pattern everywhere. The people who stay in shape aren't doing elaborate routines. They're walking daily. The people building wealth aren't chasing opportunities. They're spending less than they earn for decades. The people with great relationships aren't using tactics. They're just consistently showing up. Boring wins. Not because boring is exciting, but because boring is sustainable. And sustainable is what compounds into everything you actually want. The question isn't whether you can embrace boring investing. The question is whether you can resist the constant temptation to make it exciting, because that temptation is what separates the people who retire early from the people who work until they die.